Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Modern politicians have predictions of peace. The Bible has wars and rumors of wars, ladies and gentlemen. And we've been at war my whole lifetime. Believe it or not, I was born in 1967, and this Monday will be the sad reminder of what happened in 1967, the USS Liberty, the year I was born. Israel tried to sink the United States ship. Men to this day who survived that vicious attack by Israel on the United States speak out boldly and want recognition and want the truth to come out regarding that horrible event in history. We, on this broadcast, will never let that die. So thank you, Dr. Scott Bradley, for bringing that up last segment and bringing it up now. I am for the very same purpose. Folks, it's serious. Anyway, so, rumors of peace, they're just rumors, folks.
Just a second. I go right into what you want to talk about, but I need thinking people to think for a moment. Okay,
there's very few of those, Doctor.
A great misunderstanding that so many people say, well, it's in the Bible or it was predicted in the Bible, and they make the assumption that it is God's will that it happens.
Yeah, that's false.
God predicts what will happen because it will happen, and he knows all and sees all and all that kind of good stuff. The fact that it's predicted does not mean that it's affirmed. And people need to understand that this horrible stuff that's going to happen in the end times is because of wickedness, unrighteousness.
Yeah, it's not predestination. It's because of choices that we as a society make.
And so God does not necessarily will. So now if he says, verily thus saith the Lord, I'd like this to happen, fine, I'll go with that. But he doesn't in the vast majority of these things. I mean, think for a second about the mark of the beast. Because it's predicted in the Bible, does it mean it's God's will? Or does it mean that it's going to be the result of unrighteousness and a tyrants raising to power and policies that are raised up? So people need to understand, because it says it in the Bible, doesn't say it's an affirmed desire of God to have it happen.
Couldn't agree more.
We need to discern.
And so the Bible's talking about wars and rumors of wars, not because that's God's will, but because that's what wicked people choose. And it's because God does not take away agency. And that's really where we are on this earth to learn. Are we going to obey God or not? And the not has a gazillion roads. The obeying God really has God's road, the one he lays out for us. And that's a choice that we individually need to make as families and as communities and society. We need to make, et cetera, et cetera. But don't worry now. It's the 250 celebration, and everybody's celebrating, ladies and gentlemen. And so there's a discussion now on a proposed $250 bill. You thought a $100 bill was a lot. $250 bill. They want to have Donald's picture on it. It would break precedent because there's a law that says you can't have a living president on money. And I personally agree with that and understand. But I don't know why would want a $250 bill in the first place with Donald Trump's name on it. All that does is make you the martyr in history for belligerent inflation. Why would we need $250? I mean, look, folks, right now a dollar is worth $75, 1 ounce of silver. Okay, $20 of gold. A 1 ounce gold is worth $4,500 approximately. Okay, so this inflation, and this is just more proof of it. Why on earth would we have a $250 bill? Or why don't we just do a $1 billion, like a Zimbabwe note that's worth, just do a $1 billion bill and give everybody one? I mean, what? It's insane, Doctor.
Well, I've got some $100 billion Zimbabwe notes, but you're absolutely correct on this assessment, Sam. But there's one tempering thing that I think we've got to admit. We will probably have a $250 bill, not with Donald Trump on the picture because of the law, as you so successfully point out. But I think that what's happening right now, we will see larger denomination bills because of the inflation rates that are happening. They got rid of the penny, so the low end of things, it's costing more to make pennies than they'll buy.
It even costs more to make nickels and dimes than they're worth.
Well, a dime right now is probably, I mean, if you had a real dime with silver, it'd be worth $5.50 or something like
Yeah,
that.
good point.
But the point of the matter is that they can do paper things, and I think that the larger denomination bills are probably coming, and it will because of the inflationary things. I mean, like right now, I think gas is up something like 43, 45% from what it was just a few months ago on
Yeah, it's four something,
February
almost
27th.
five. In a lot of states, it's five something. And if you need diesel, it's even more, and all that's going to affect the truckers and back into everything's going up, people. So you're right, but I don't know why just do the 250 bill. Why not just drop the dollar bill? The minimum is a 10 spot. Just do $500 bills, $1,000 bills, kind of thing. I mean, just
That day's
go
coming,
with
my
it.
friend. But here's another little strange twist on this. People need, I mean, we don't have time to develop any of these stories at all, but Commodus was he was an emperor of Rome about 190 AD. The movie Gladiator with Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe kind of loosely portrayed that. But Commodus, when he was emperor, renamed everything in his name. He renamed Rome. He renamed the legions. He renamed the people
Yeah,
of Rome.
he
renamed
Donalded
the
and
months.
everything.
He dinked around with everything, and I'm seeing that with Donald Trump. I mean, everything. He's got a new class of battleships that he's putting out.
Oh
The
yeah,
Trump class.
sure.
And this again contradicts tradition with what the Navy does with things. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, Commodus was a megalomaniac, narcissist, and so on. But think about the Kennedy Center, which was the National Cultural Center.
Well,
I
they got to
think in
change that to
19
the Dawn Center.
Well, the thing is, it was named by Congress the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts back in 1964 in honor of the fallen president. And by a wave of a magic wand, he named it the Trump Kennedy Center. And the courts have said, no, this was created by Congress as this name, and you can't arbitrarily change the name. Look at the Straits of Hormuz. They've suggested renaming it the Strait of Trump. This was before it turned into such a show of despair.
I've got to just rename Cuba Trump Island.
And make Marco Rubio the president. Fine. Only I don't want the United States to have Cuba because
I agree. I'm just kidding, ladies and gentlemen. We shouldn't do that. And the point's well taken. And so I'm against Trump being on the $250 bill. I'm against the $250 bill in general because I don't think we should back and promote this inflation. The answer to the inflation, ladies and gentlemen, is return to honest money. It always has been and always will be. That's why the founders constitutionally, the supreme law of the land says we must use gold and silver as our currency, and I would propose that we return to that, and the sooner the better. And you start by giving us a 250-year, I don't know what you want to call it, 4th of July present. It'd be my birthday present, by the way. Or you could do it for Christmas, whichever you want to, Donald, or both. Just say it's, abolish the IRS. Why don't we just start there? Abolish the IRS, and then let's eventually abolish the, Federal Reserve. That's what we need to get done. But you know what? On a personal level for Trump, he wants to name everything after himself, which is a concern. But now there's frustration about the lack of shared information regarding Trump's medical exams. And I agree that's a frustration. We don't really know what's going on with all that, and it's frustrating. But look, presidents have hidden their health issues. Didn't we have a president that used to be in a wheelchair and nobody knew, doctor?
Well, yeah. First of all, there's no law that requires them to make it public.
That's right.
And then there's HIPAA stuff. Nobody can just broadcast.
Except for the president, you can leak his taxes and find out about his health, and it doesn't apply to presidents, right? Not
right. Well, the HIPAA protects sensitive health information, that kind of stuff. All those are laws. We beefed about Biden covering up his health, examinations. FDR, as you point out, he had braces on his legs from polio that they tried so desperately to keep anybody from knowing.
I don't think most people knew that, though, really.
Yeah, they hit it very well. JFK, his degenerative disease, he had Addison's disease, an adrenal gland kind of thing. It leads to severe fatigue, low blood pressure, chronic back pain, osteoporosis. He was supposed to be a young, vigorous president. He was broke down with Addison's. They did a really, really hardcore cover-up. In fact, when him and LBJ were vying for the presidency, they lied through their teeth on the news releases that came out about Kennedy's stuff. It's always been a problem, but there's no law that says it's got to be exposed. And so,
well, and I have a little bit of a different view on this. I do believe the American people do have a right to know how well their commander-in-chief is, functionally and able to do the job. And I do think there's some parameters there. What I don't think is that every Joe needs to know all the details of his personal health and life and everything else. So the problem is that we need some kind of a third party, independent vetting that we could trust. That's very hard to achieve is the problem, because all the president does is get his own internal doctors that just tell the tale that they want told, kind of thing. That's the problem in America, is everything when it comes to honesty and trust is broken down, Doctor. That's really the problem.
Well, it has, and that's the problem, is that we have disingenuous pronouncements. And he has a lot of health issues that are not being exposed. And so what are they? I don't know. But it's something that people are asking.
All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Just our take on it. I don't want the $250 bill, and I certainly don't want Donald on it. And I do pray for Donald's health. I'll tell you that right now. Ladies and gentlemen, transgenderism in the military. We'll talk about it. You're listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
Are you watching what's happening in our country and asking, what can I do? Join the John Birch Society in Salt Lake City, June 6th, for a powerful one-day conference. The day includes a host of respected speakers, 2 meals, and meaningful connections. You'll gain clarity on the issues and walk away with practical steps you can take to your community. Reserve your seat today at jbs.org/SLC26. That's jbs.org/SLC26.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
All right, Dr. Scott Bradley's with me, ladies and gentlemen. There's a big old battle, and now it's hit Supreme Court proportions. What about these transgenders in the military? Biden and company wanted to promote that. This really goes back to, in my opinion, the don't ask, don't tell policy that the Democrats wanted with gays in the military. In the beginning, it was like, hey, you know what? We're not going to have this. And then the Democrats pushed for don't ask, don't tell, and Republicans said, no. Then the Democrats got don't ask, don't tell. Then they pushed harder and said, let's promote ourselves as gay in the military. And then the Republicans went, no, we got to stay with don't ask, don't tell. Don't ask, don't tell is awesome. Got to stay with that. And so the Democrats are really just a couple of steps ahead of the Republicans for the most part. And now we kind of see the same thing. They're now trying to promote transgenderism in the military. They get special privilege and everything else. Trump has been pushing back on this, and I think he's right when it comes to this. And I think we need to really realize we don't want this in the military, whether it's the gays, whether it's we cannot have the Republicans a step or two behind the Democrats is all. Doctor?
Well, there's always a bit of a backstory to this thing. And yes, indeed, the steps that you've elucidated are all correct. But what happened when Trump got in is they said, we won't let transgenders serve. Okay, and a year ago, May of 2025, the Supreme Court said, basically it prohibits members of the military from openly identifying as transgender. But what happened was they've stepped forward now. There's kind of a Hegseth policy. They're saying they're removing current members of the service affected by this transgender dysphoria. I don't know. It's a dysphoria, I guess. I don't know. At any rate,
what it is, it's a lie, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on. A dysphoria might be on the part of the person that wants to transition because they're confused, for sure. But it's a flat-out lie by the scientific community and the medical establishment and by government. It's a flat-out lie. There's no such thing as transgender. You're born a male or a female, and that's all there is to it. Scientifically, God's law, you cannot find anything where I'm wrong. So let's just stand up and be tall on this thing. The truth is, folks, there are male and female created God Almighty, and that's the way it is. And this transgender thing is a flat-out perverted, satanic lie straight for the pit of hell, Doctor.
Well, it's embedded in your DNA, and that's the way it is. You can't go much deeper than that. So anyway, there's some.
Anyway, sorry to do that, but I can't take it anymore.
Yeah. There's current members that are transgender, the members of the military. They filed a lawsuit. Okay, so there was a hearing before a 3-judge panel in Washington, D.C. Two of them were, well, one was Obama appointee, one was a Clinton appointee, and one was a Trump appointee. Two of them, I'll leave it to you to guess who, says, no, you can't do it. It's under equal protection of the law. Okay. So they said it was basically people have served honorably. They're facing expulsion. They're not some kind of a national, risk for anything. No security risk, anything like that. So anyway, these two judges and their panel said, nope, they can't be kicked out. One that was a Trump appointee. He dissented on a very appropriate dissent. He dissented saying he's partially right. If you read Article 1, Section 8, you'll find that Congress is the one that sets the rules. And so, and he said Congress and the president should set the rules. But the Congress should set the rules. The Congress should be the ones, but Congress makes the rules for the government and regulation of land and naval forces. That's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 14. But so this guy was more right than the other two because they're using like the 14th Amendment to approve that this thing is. But so what can happen is now it can be appealed to the whole body of judges in this appellate court that it was done through, or they can go to the Supreme Court. And I think what's going to happen is that it's going to be taken immediately to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will have to rule on it. And it's just a massive confusion, folks. As Sam points out, we're trying to change the basic, not just physics, but whole aspect of humanity.
Yeah, the bottom line is God's in charge here in the definition of this, folks, and the rest is nothing but a perverted lie. And so the courts need to simply say, hey, you know what? We're not gonna take this on. Congress needs to make the rules first off, not the courts. Number one. Number two, there's no such thing as a transgender, so it's a non-discussion. Can men who have mutilated their bodies or women who have mutilated their bodies serve in the military? And I would say no. And I would say the reason why is because, again, we have all kinds of prerequisites. If you don't have good enough health, if you're too short, if you're too heavy, if you're too this, there's all kinds of rules when you can't serve because we need able-bodied people to take the action necessary. And so it isn't a hostility towards anybody. It's just a reality. If you're confused, if you're, on this gender thing, and you're free to live your life. We're not here to control your life. We are here to say, though, that we can't use you in the military, though. And I think it's a simple line. The courts should turn it back to Congress, and Congress should decide, Doctor.
Well, yes, yes, absolutely. But
they won't.
Deal. Your listeners need to go do some research. We don't have time to expose everything in this thing. Expose is a bad term, perhaps, in a sexual context.
Yeah, we don't have time to vet it, right?
That's true. But here's the deal. Go research the lifelong maladies that males that have mutilated their body to become females face. It's
a real thing. And that's why we can't have it in the military. It'll drive costs through the roof for all their medical costs and everything else. They'll be distracted with this stuff 24/7. It's just nothing but confusion and disaster. They'll create a disparity and trouble in the ranks. The list goes on, and everybody knows the truth, Doctor, if they're honest with themselves.
But it's still amazing. People continue to attempt to make this mainstream discussion, and it's in the courts. And so
I know,
bring this up
and we're waiting for the ruling to come down. We're waiting on the courts for a bunch of things. By the way, June is their month to release everything. I personally think they should release things throughout the year, not just wait and study them all for a year and just kind of disappear and then release it all and then go on recess. I'd like to see the courts calibrate how they do things, but that's a whole nother topic. John Bolton is in the news, and I think John Bolton's a hardened criminal. But John Bolton now strikes plea deal over classified information charges, right? He agreed to a $2.5 million fine, and the former national security advisor, he's going to plead guilty to a single charge of obtaining classified information. And they say the deal, which resolves a criminal case, 18 counts. So he's going to pay this fine. The agreement says that there's a possibility of 5 years in jail, but they believe this dramatic turn comes after Bolton vigorously contested the accusations in court last October. The final decision on Bolton's punishment rests with the judge. Arraignment's on June 26th. And the bottom line is they're going to let him off, let him pay a couple of $1 million, and then just pay a fine and avoid jail time is what they're going to do. So they're really letting him off. What we really need to do is vet this and hold him criminally liable for this big time, but they're not going to do anything except for, let him pay a little, fee, let him off. He'll write a book that'll trump the fees he had to pay, and he'll be all good, Doctor. Sad but true.
It's likely this, it'll probably follow that path. I will say this. I'm trying to put a happy spin on this, Sam. Don't always tell me I'm always a puddledum about things. He's getting his hand slapped harder than Joe Biden did.
Amen.
For his keeping of apparently cases and cases of classified information, passing it on to universities for exposure on their shelves, his alignment with China and how that has happened. Joe Biden got off with nothing because he's a senile old man that the one that did the interview says we could never get a conviction. This guy, if he got in front of the court, they would have mercy on him because this guy ought to be institutionalized. I didn't quite put it in those terms, but Bolton's getting a little something more than that in terms of...
Well, and I'm glad he at least gets something because they could have gave him nothing and ignored it. So it is something. I agree with you. Now, the final decision's coming up on this thing. But what I found interesting is this dramatic turn comes after Bolton vigorously contested the accusations in October. So I don't understand how you just kind of about face. You spend a bunch of the court's time, a bunch of the, on this thing. You contested it. There needs to be a much bigger fine than this after you spend a bunch of our taxpayers' money. How much did it cost while he contested it? Did he cost the taxpayers in the beginning before he decided to cop a plea deal? So I got a problem with the whole thing on the morality side of it. I agree at least something's being done. You're right.
Okay, so here's the deal. John Bolton, look at all of the positions he has held in the intelligence world. Of all people, he should understand the egregious violation this thing is. Some private first class that happens to sneeze wrong in a bar outside the post and divulges something would probably be hung out to dry. But Bolton had the highest level of classifications, of clearances, and knowledge, and this guy's basically getting off with a wrist slap.
And it's a tragedy, and it needs to stop. And I thought that the Trump administration would do more to take action, but lo and behold, more and more of the same. The inside class gets the special treatment, and you and I get the shaft, ladies and gentlemen. Final story before the end of the hour. Washington has a $70 billion bet on the border. Senate Republicans approved nearly $70 billion in new immigration enforcement funding. And I kind of find that interesting. I don't know how to deal with it. They just spend us into oblivion, Doctor, all the time. Now, I support the border. We got to protect ourselves. At the same time, I kind of wonder, $70 billion in new immigration enforcement funding? I don't know what to think about it.
Well, to tell you the truth, I absolutely, a nation that cannot or will not protect their borders can not long remain a nation. That's a fact from history.
Amen.
But the fact of the matter is that I don't have enough details on this to know if it's some big slush fund or some big boondoggle. I don't know. I'd like to know more details.
Well, we'll dig in, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a headline for now. We're going to keep an eye on that ball. The more details comes out. Usually they say you have to pass it to find out what's in it. So that's kind of the deal here, too. We'll get more details. But I wanted to give you that headline. $70 billion. And Republicans are taking a border bet. I just know this. I pray we could protect our border. But I think we could do it a lot less expensive than that. Try bringing our troops home and save all that money. And then there's a lot of ways we could take care of business, folks. For Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com, I'm Sam Bushman. We're everywhere, man. We're on libertyroundtable.com, Liberty News Radio. We're available on Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. Spread the word, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.